morning and welcome back to the TechLaw Solutions booth and our live presentation of the e-discovery zone from Legal Tech New York, day 2. Luckily we're inside where it's dry and warm.
Yes indeed, and I'm Browning Marion from DLA Piper, and it's my great pleasure to have Jonathan Moss, an alum of DLA, at least in the UK.
Yes.
Now with E&Y.
Ernst & Young in London, yes.
By the way, I don't know if you can do a close-up. Jonathan has the single worst collection of ties of any person that I have ever known. His worst being the fish tie.
Like hippo tie, yes.
Yes, but that was an earlier time. Well, Jonathan, there's really quite a contingent over from the UK.
Yes, indeed.
Which in our economy, we're pleased to have you here.
Delighted to be here at the foremost show.
Give us a sense of what's going on in the UK market generally in terms of e-disclosure, I guess is what you call it.
E-disclosure, indeed. I think we're seeing containment. I think we're seeing people trying to put a hold on the volumes of data that needs to be collected and reviewed, and indeed a container on the volumes of data that need to be preserved as well. So I think it's a period of reappraisal about what we're doing within this business and how it best suits the interests of the business that we serve, the corporates.
And is that pressure coming from the corporate side, do you think? Or?
I think it is, yes. There is a degree of pushback on what's being demanded of them and whether it is proportionate in our terms, balanced against the matters in dispute, amounts in dispute, and simply that it potentially can cripple businesses and prevent them from conducting their everyday business, and that cannot be allowed to happen.
Well, you know, I've been very interested, our good friend Chris Dale, who I know he's here as well,
I have seen him once or twice.
He's a busy lad.
He is.
But I know you've got a new practice directive over there. And,
indeed.
Is that going to, do you think, aid in general understanding and adoption, or is it still early in the missionary work with that?
That's a very good question. I think that it is still early in the missionary work, but what it is causing lawyers to do is realize that they cannot escape the electronic aspect of disclosure. It's causing them to think carefully about it, to discuss with their opponents in the courts what they may or may not do with it, so they can no longer sweep it under the carpet or indeed make sweeping decisions about vast swathes of electronic data without thinking about it carefully beforehand. So I don't think it's the answer. I think it is a short-term panacea in that it is putting it up front and centre instead of hiding it somewhere. So it's a very good step on the road towards a potential solution.
You know, your mention of proportionality, Tom and I are constantly wrestling with that in the small to medium-sized case where you can sometimes have the e-discovery tail wag the dog, become the dog.
Yes.
Are you, and I know you've got the blessing of having Judge Simon Brown, for example, in the Mercantile Court that seems to be very hands-on. Are you finding more of the judiciary taking a role similar to what Judge Brown has done?
No, we're not. We have, of course, Senior Master Whitaker.
Yes.
Standing beside His Honour Simon Brown. I think they are leading luminaries, and they are helping us, like Irish Indien did in the early days here in the US, of giving us case law to underpin sensible decisions. But no, it's a slow process, and it's one that I'm hoping to engage in educating the judiciary about what this all means. But it is a slow process.
Now, one of the things you're also blessed with in London is something called the List Group.
Yes.
Tell us what that's about.
The List Group is originally an informal collection of litigation support professionals from private practice and in-house legal who got together, tired of all the hot air that one was hearing at conferences about the problem of electronic disclosure, and decided to try and make some solutions to it by addressing things like a very early draft of the current practice direction, addressing things like the very early version of the technology questionnaire that accompanies that practice direction, and trying to set standards so that when parties to a dispute needed to exchange data on disclosure, on production, they could do it in a means that would hopefully lead to seamless integration, import into their opponent's systems. thereby reducing a vast amount of money involved in the movement of data from one party to another, a sort of Esperanto of data transfer. That, like most of LIST's work, has been satisfactory. I was a founding member of LIST whilst at DLA Piper, but it has not been taken up by the industry as quickly or assiduously as possible, which is a pity, but it's becoming a very powerful group within the UK, and with, I think, a degree of envy being regarded from jurisdictions like the US and Canada and Australia as the ability of private practice to get together and try and make a change from within, engaging with the vendor community as necessary, but that not being the focal supporting part of it. That is the difference, I think, between the UK and the US. In the UK, the law firms, the lawyers, the lit sup managers drive where it goes and the vendors follow. I think it's exactly the opposite in the US, which hampers, I think, the successful creation of such an independent group.
Well, we could certainly benefit from it, and I'm envious of it.
Absolutely. Well, we do what we can to help you guys over here in the US to follow our shining example.
Well, I know that you were on your way to a meeting, and thank you for letting us hijack a bit of
pleasure.
Your
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Pleasure, Tom.
We'll let Jonathan go and call that the end of this interview from the eDiscovery Zone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thank you, sir.